Have you ever wondered if we could just create a perfect economy? One that gets rid of poverty and inequality once and for all? Well, today we're going to try and build that world. But as we're about to find out, the real cost of a utopia might just be our humanity. So let's just start with this one. Simple question. Forget about money, forget about gold or stocks. What if the only real currency was the one thing we all get an equal amount of every single day, our time?
Now, to even imagine this new world, we have to picture the end of our own. I want you to imagine a global financial crash so total, so absolute, that all money becomes worthless paper. The entire slate is wiped clean, and out of that chaos, people start looking for a completely radical new answer.
And that answer, that radical solution, is a currency that's not based on governments or banks, but on the one thing every single person has to give: their time.
This is the core of the whole idea. They call it the chrono. And the system is just brutally simple. 1 hour of the most basic, unskilled human work is now worth exactly 1 chrono. That's it. That's the new global standard, the bedrock for this entire new economy.
So how does this actually play out? Well, it's basically a 3-step process. First, this new international group is created, the Global Labor Bank, or GLB for short. Then, the GLB looks at every single job and gives it a multiplier. So a surgeon, for example, might get a multiplier of 5, meaning they earn 5 chronos per hour. And finally, everything, and I mean everything, gets priced in time. A cup of coffee might cost you 15 minutes of your work.
And you know what? For the first 10 years, it works. It works spectacularly. It really seems like humanity has finally figured out how to make a truly fair society.
The speed of this change is just staggering. I mean, look at this timeline. At year 0, poof, all debt is gone. Just 5 years later, homelessness is completely gone. And by year 10, poverty and starvation are things kids only read about in history books.
So the system totally delivered on its big promises. Poverty was gone because everyone had a job and a fair wage. The gap between the richest and poorest people shrank to almost nothing, creating real, actual equality. And with everyone using the same system, that old sense of nationalism started to melt away, replaced by this feeling of global unity.
This is where the whole psychology of value just flips on its head. A new smartphone isn't just a number on a price tag anymore, it's 400 hours of your actual life. A loaf of bread? That's 10 minutes. A new car? That'll be 1,500 hours, please. All of a sudden, value isn't some abstract concept, it's incredibly personal.
But after this golden age, the first cracks in this perfect world start to appear. See, the system's greatest strength, its incredible fairness, starts to reveal this deep, unintended flaw, one that begins to slowly eat away at the human spirit.
Okay, so this is really the heart of the problem. Let me ask you, why would you spend 10 grueling years of your life training to be a neurosurgeon, dealing with all that stress for 5 chronos an hour when you could be a librarian with way less training and a much calmer life for 2 chronos an hour? The extra reward just doesn't seem worth the huge sacrifice, right?
And that's exactly what begins to happen. Ambition just changes. People stop trying to be the best in their field. Instead, they try to maximize their free time. The new goal in life becomes finding the most comfortable, least stressful job you can that still pays the bills.
And this is what happens to innovation. In our world, it's that slim chance of a billion-dollar payout that makes people take massive risks. But in the chrono system, the reward for some world-changing invention is maybe a slightly higher hourly wage. It's a good living, for sure, but it's not the kind of thing that inspires you to risk everything you have. And so, eventually, those world-changing risks, they just stop happening.
So this ambition drain, this collapse in innovation, it doesn't actually cause the system to fail. Not at all. Instead, it just causes it to settle into this vast, stable, and profoundly mediocre state.
And now, guess who the most powerful people on the planet are? A bunch of unelected bureaucrats at the Global Labor Bank. They decide what every job is worth. Is a poet's work valuable? They say it's worth half a chrono an hour. A pro athlete? 3 chronos. These aren't economic decisions anymore. They're purely political. And that becomes the new source of power, corruption, and control. But, human nature always finds a way. A huge underground economy starts to pop up, one that runs on barter and personal trust. And this gray market becomes the only place you can find real passion, real luxury.
A mechanic fixes your car off the books for a few bottles of homemade wine. An artist trades a sculpture for a rare book. It's here, in the shadows, that the human drive to create and achieve really survives.
So where does all of this lead? Let's fast forward 50 years after the big chrono reset and see what this world actually looks like and what the ultimate price for all this perfection really was.
50 years later, the system's main goal has been a total success. There's no one starving, no one is homeless. The absolute floor of human suffering has been raised for every single person.
But in raising that floor, they also built a ceiling. The chance for extreme wealth, for building something truly incredible and being rewarded for it, it's gone. The whole idea of making it big is something from the distant past.
And this is the final stark equation. By getting rid of the risk of terrible failure, society also got rid of the possibility for incredible success. Humanity is now just existing in a vast, comfortable, and totally uninspired middle.
There's a quote from this thought experiment that just captures it perfectly. They achieved equality, but it was the equality of a flat line on a heart monitor. Think about that. It's a world with no lows, sure, but it's also a world with no highs. It's stable, it's peaceful, but it doesn't have a pulse.
And that leaves us with this one final, kind of haunting question. We spend so much of our lives fighting against the chaos and the unfairness of our world. But what if that struggle, that risk of failure, and that potential for greatness is the very engine that drives us forward? What if it's the very thing that makes life worth living?